I've done it, I have all of them named, but I guess when you get down to 10, I think is Rephidim, and I believe that that's where
Ramesses
the
was the capital.
the rock
Ramses.
gave them water, where they got water from the rock. So I mean, it's interesting to place some of these, and what happened in Mount Hor, which is like the 33rd stop, is where Aaron dies. Is where he goes up to the top of Mount Hor to die. And it's funny because I think the 41st and 42nd stops are really not so much stops as they delineate kind of this whole spread, because they stopped by Jericho from Beth Jeshimoth to Abel Shittim. So it was almost like this whole range. They camped, and it's like it took up the space from here to here before they went to Jericho. Once they crossed, that 42nd stop was actually kind of a range between almost two, seeming to me to be a range between two cities.
Which is the 42nd stop?
Beth Yeshimoth and Abel Shittim, which it says is by Jericho. And verse, it's near the bottom. I can tell you it's near the bottom.
7 days, no money bread.
We look for
It's 49. And they pitched by Jordan from Beth Jeshimoth to Abel Shittim in the plains of Moab. Near, it says, and the Lord spake unto Moses in the plains of Moab by Jordan near Jericho, saying. So that's the point that they're about to enter into their promise, if you will. And like I say, I have heard definitely differing opinions as to whether or not, that's something that we'll deal with. Is there a corollary between the second Exodus, the greater Exodus? Will there be 42 stages to that greater Exodus? I don't know that I would definitively say one way or another. I mean, I think it's possible. He works in patterns. He gives us patterns. He gives us shadows of things to come.
It's 42 months though.
Could be. I mean, there are many references. I mean, that I've heard. I mean, there's. He gives us numbers for reasons.
42 months is what that last of everybody's getting
Exodus.
punished.
Okay, but you have a tribulation. Isn't it? Is it 42 or 45?
I thought it was 42.
Could be 42.
2.5 years.
Yeah, 36 and 8. 36 and 6, right. Yep,
They didn't do
3.5
that.
years. That would make sense. So, I mean, I think it's wonderful to look at some of the names. Will they give you some kind of an insight into that journey? Possibly. I'll tell you right now, my study wasn't that comprehensive at this point. I think it's a very interesting, would not be a bad study to make. And again, there's things that are, it's like that looking through the glass darkly. I thought I saw something that looked like this, but you're probably not going to see, in retrospect, the pan-tribist view that we've heard of before, pan-tribulationally, we'll probably be able to go back and go, oh, Libnah, yeah, that stop at Libnah, that was this, and that's what at Libnah, oh yeah, now I could see it. Yeah, that was it. I remember that one.
Hindsight is always very
Right. I remember when we stopped at Libnah on the second Exodus,
We need to use one of our lifelines and call that.
Yeah. Go ahead. Use, if that's the, I don't think it was the $1 million. I was going to say $64,000. But that dates me. So okay, that's I mean, I think, you know, it's one of the things that I think is very easy to fall into when it comes to the Old Testament. And especially, I mean, I was given the impression Numbers was definitely one of those that you jump right over.
Leviticus.
Yeah, but even along with Leviticus, Numbers was just that, Numbers. It's like, you ain't gonna get nothing out of there, it's just a listing of everything under the sun, right? You know, it is
But
wonderful
everything is numbers.
to look and see that there's nothing superfluous. There's nothing that's just extra. You know, granted, there are things that we may not see as significant right now because they don't affect our lives like all the elements of the temple or the tabernacle. Well, they don't necessarily affect our lives overtly at this point. But obviously, if we're paying attention, we realize they're significant because he reiterates them and spells them out and is very clear and very specific and gives us measurements and weights and everything like that. They're obviously significant. Well, so are all 42 of these locations. You know, it's not just the travel log so you can follow along with the movie. You know, I mean, there's more to it than that. And my guess is that probably as things move along, more will be revealed. You know, in that significance.
The closer we get to Jeremiah 16:16,
Okay,
the second Exodus.
gotcha. All right.
Because he's revealing so much at this time, and, you know, it's just mind-boggling. I can't.
Okay, then 34. Again, more.
So before we pass that one.
Yes, ma'am.
It says here in 55, but you do not drive it out in houses of the land, but we've already.
Oh, yes, thank you.
Then,
Extremely
and they did not
significant.
do that.
Extremely significant, I think. I absolutely, because one of the things that you said in 55, yeah. Well, okay, actually, where I was going to go in 35. I was looking at 35 with 33 and 34, where they're talking about blood defiling the land, but. Again, he's talking about the land.
Right.
And I think you bring up a really good point because so much of this stuff does not have to do with them as much as it has to do with the land.
That and obedience.
And obedience, yeah. Well, and really, when we get to 35, 33, and 34, he points out why. He says, because I dwell here.
Yeah.
Right.
I dwell here, just the same as take your shoes off. You're on holy ground. This is where I dwell. So it's important for them to not defile the land.
Also, if I understand it properly, they said that if those three tribes did not do as they were saying, they would not be allowed to take that land. They would have to get their inheritance in the land.
Okay. Oh, if they left, if they didn't finish out, yeah, absolutely right. If they didn't finish out with what they said they would do by staying with and fighting until everybody had received their portion, that they would forfeit that land.
And they would have to get their inheritance with everybody else.
Make sense?
There, when we're talking about, and I'm probably jumping ahead a couple of verses to 38,
Okay.
but where it talks about the death of Aaron, it talks about blood defiling the land, there's amazing parallels here between the death of Aaron and the death of Yeshua.
Oh,
Okay,
yeah.
because it says in verse 38 in the Hebrew, it says that Aaron died by the mouth of the Lord, right? And what's the one thing that we read about with the death of Yeshua? He was betrayed, actually, and the sages say that Aaron died by the kiss of the Lord, by the mouth of him. The Lord kissed him, and Aaron died. Same with Moses. How did Yeshua ultimately go to his fate? By a kiss from Judas.
Yeah.
It says Judas, you betrayed the Son of Man with a kiss.
So where do you get the,
I'm reading a I'm sorry, this is from a commentary.
oh, okay,
Yeah.
okay, I'm trying to, but now where, okay. And where,
I'm sorry, it's in Hebrew, in verse 38.
okay, that's what I'm looking for.
Okay, 38 in Hebrew.
And are you in 34 or 35?
33.
No,
33, 38.
Ah, okay, that's what I was going, I'm finding it
For
38.
some reason, I don't know what happened in my head, I thought we were at
No, that's okay.
That's what we're talking about.
Okay, well, like in Hebrew, in verse 38, it says, let me find it. Yeah, hang on. Oh, yeah, I'm on the wrong page. No, I'm looking on the opposite side of the page. I'm tired.
33, 38.
Okay, so it says, "V'ha'alach Aaron HaKohen al Hor Hakar v'al pi Adonai v'yimach sham." Right? He ascended to Mount Hor. By the mouth of Hashem he died. By the mouth of the Lord he died. Right? So he died by the mouth of God. And the sages, have said there that, well, he died with a kiss. And it's the same thing is said of Moses later, that Moses died by the mouth of God.
Well, and it does, because it says Mount Hor at the commandment or the pay.
And pay literally is mouth.
His mouth, right, exactly.
His mouth, by the mouth of God.
Right.
Well, and he also breathed into us.
God spoke it, and that was it.
Right.
God said you're gonna die, and that's it.
And I think that maybe, and this is just me speaking my own opinion, but I think that we can lend, in this instance, the interpretation of the sages some credence, because we see a very similar thing with Yeshua. Yeshua was kissed by an enemy and then taken to his death.
Yeah, the only difference is obviously one was a betrayal and one wasn't,
Right.
you know.
Proverbs says the kisses of an enemy are deceitful. So the crazy thing about this, on Mount Hor, there's actually a mosque at the very top of it where they say Aaron died.
Really?
And in 2008, my stepdad went to Israel, and he got these guys to drive up as far as they could go, and he still had to climb up 800 feet. But he was in a rush to go up there before the guide got there. And he climbed up on top of it, and he blew the shofar, and the little Muslim guy who was there was cheering him on for blowing the shofar on top of this mosque.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, good for him.
But it's they know all these places, and they put mosques there as a symbol of defeat.
They're defeated, yeah, they're
Like,
defeated.
same with the one near Ground Zero. It's
The one on the Temple Mount.
yeah, yeah. That's a,
Yeah, or
that's a sign of defeat.
all of the graves there at the foot of Mount of Olives. Where it's
Yeah.
see, he won't walk over this.
They're not gonna have.
It's gonna break
They're gonna
it.
be gone.
Yeah.
Yes.
They don't know that, though, evidently.
You know why they couldn't build the mosque up at Ground Zero, don't you?
Bodies?
Because they put a pig down there.
No, used to be a pig farm.
Oh, it used to be a pig
It
farm?
used to be a pig farm.
Let's hear it for Yazgar.
Praise God.
Different place.
Yeah.
Okay,
Using evil for
34, we get a listing of,
You mean that's what 14 kids
we'll say the leaders, the first leaders that we're going to see in the Promised Land. These are the people that are the prince of the tribe of the children of Ephraim, Kemuel, son of Shipton. There, again with lineage. Although it's interesting that they don't break up the tribe of Manasseh, which I thought was interesting. So even on both sides, there's still one head of that tribe, Manasseh, according to this at least. It wasn't like there was a division within Manasseh that made them split up. But I'm sure
So this is
the guys on the western side of the Jordan got really good beef. They didn't have a problem with that because they had brothers that on the east side that raised good beef. Well, I want to I want to really get to, I'd like to spend a little bit of time in looking at this part. I mean, this city of refuge was, it's a very interesting concept to me. Now, I don't think there's any less significance to the fact that Levi, they were given 42 cities. My computer just crashed.
Blue screen of death?
Yeah. Reboot? Okay, go for it. Do your thing. But I don't think there's any insignificance to the fact that there was 42 cities that they got, that Levi was given.
So you got 42 cities, you got 42 stops, you got 42
Mhm.
weeks.
Right, yeah, I mean,
And
yeah, there's no, very few coincidences, put it that way.
42 in the Hebrew is gonna be, the minimum is 40.
6. It's a 6. It's a number of men.
42?
The
The
Kabbalah,
minimum is 40, she said.
or the
Yeah, 42
gematria of it.
42 is the mem and the bet.
Okay. So the chaos in the house?
Makes
I
sense.
don't know, the chaos in the house, yeah.
The minimum and the bait, what's that mean?
Oh,
Yeah, what-
chaos in the house.
Or the continuation of the house, you could look at it a couple different ways. That the house goes on,
That's what my
you
friend.
know. I know
Movement,
men,
the movement.
yeah, I mean, men can, it can also, it's not all, I don't think it's always just chaos. It can mean the continuation of, or this,
Until they see
you know, that it keeps going on. Give me 1 second here while I pull Skype back up, just in case anybody was actually listening.
Well, what do you do
Um,
now?
Yes,
You
sure.
know,
I wanted to ask y'all to, or tell you that my granddaughter, great-granddaughter, that's what she put tattooed on the side of her body. My life is chaos.
ooh,
And then I was talking to, what is her name? Anyway, she was telling me a lot of times those tattoos are to cover up the drugs. Cover up the drug marks.
Oh, needles,
Um,
yeah, needle marks.
The needle marks.
This one girl?
where'd she get the tattoo at?
I don't know where she got it, probably on the ground.
I mean, where on her body?
She's got it right here.
You don't do drugs on yourself.
Okay.
They don't put
Feet.
drugs out. Well, she's got tattoos.
All right.
Same places too.
All right.
Sorry.
That's all right. Gosh, I'm sitting here now. Where I wanted to, some of the stuff that I read, I thought it was really interesting. One of the things that I really kind of, I was reading again some commentaries, because one of the things that's always kind of gotten me was, and I'll be honest with you, I did not find what to me was, I would call a definitive answer to this, but it's something that I'm still kind of trying to research. The idea of the correlation between city of refuge and manslaughter and the life of the high priest, you know, and how the life of the two of them are obviously completely intertwined. We know that it obviously speaks to the idea that it's not, there's a distinction between murder and killing. They make that distinction. I think it's an important, I think it's significant that they make that distinction between murder and killing. And, you know, again, we always talk about motive, but motive is, you know, it goes back to the idea that God always looks at our heart, you know, which is the thing that actually begins action, you know, not really, I mean, your head begins actions, but looking at that motive, and some of the things that I read, they made comments to where because God's plan is perfect, these are obviously probably things from the Mishnah and the Talmud and things like that, opinions again, and some of them are
Way out there.
definitely way out there and definitely attest to the fact that this stuff is, a lot of this stuff is of man and not, I don't believe, of God. But that God's judgment, if you will, is perfect. And that if you commit a crime where you receive a sentence of 20 years, he's not going to have a high priest that's only going to live for 10. You know, the priest is going to live. But they also say that if you commit a crime, again, we're obviously talking about some sort of an adjudication based on a death, not just any crime.
Well, yeah, he lines it out.
Yeah, I mean, but that if you're really only should be there for 10 days, then the high priest is only going to be alive for 10 days, you know, before they get to a new one. And they some of the that I thought was there was a certain beauty to it, was this correlation between the high priest's responsibility, because there are some commentaries that talked about how they say that really it's on the high priest, because obviously he wasn't praying enough or focused enough to keep people from dying under his watch, if you will. You know, and so he bears that a certain amount of that responsibility for those deaths, and so thusly for the people that were elements or tools of that.
Right. I think, you know, maybe there could be a little bit of credence there, and why? Because what do we read about the differences in the priesthoods in the Hebrews?
Yeah.
It says that the priesthood of Aaron wasn't perfect.
Right.
Why? Because they died.
And because they sinned.
Right. Because they died and because they sinned.
Right.
You know. However, you know, if you have a high priest who functions for you in a completely different venue, you know, being at the right hand of God, you know, in the heavens,
Right.
who does not sin, then his rulership is perfect and his judgment is just.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and to that, I think one of the places that I mean, they finish, I think it's not insignificant, one that I was drawn to, was it 35, 33 and 34? I think it's really significant, again, when we bring in the element of blood. I think there's, because he says he's in the Lamb, and we're talking again about the significance of the land. Not even, I would say, even above the people. Because God dwells in the land. He doesn't say, I dwell in the people. Now they should be in their hearts, but they don't automatically. They're not automatically there, you know. But he is in the land, and we know that blood does both. Blood both defiles the land and it consecrates the land. I mean, which is what they do at the temple,
And there's even
the altars.
with the spilling of the innocent blood of Yeshua, you can actually go in and you can read in Josephus, you can read in the Mishnah, how certain things around the temple actually started going wrong after they executed Yeshua. You know, I mean, there were doors to the entrance of the temple that would not close. They would actually come open. The scarlet thread in the temple that would turn white on Yom Kippur stopped turning white. These are all things that are written down in history, and they all stopped their normal function after the death of the Messiah.
Wow.
And so, spilling innocent blood in the
Yeah,
land has an
and
effect.
what was it, the lots that they drew?
Right.
Always in the
They couldn't
wrong hand.
determine which goat was to be sent out.
Because they didn't render, because look, it was meter connect here, right? It was, this for that, right? Because because that same meter did not render judgment properly, they were not allowed from that point on to render their judgments accurately, because they had not done so when it counted.
Right. One of the things that I found that I really liked, that again is from, stop,
Do it again.
died again.
Is it plugged in?
Yeah, it's plugged in.
Because you're burning
Let's talk about adequate disk space, but I don't.
Is the
hope I-
computer on?
Yes. Anyway, one of the things that I found that again, this is according to Rambam, okay, but that the imagery I thought was really beautiful and
But it was all backed up.
relevant. Talking about, you know how, like it says that if you're guilty of or you're guilty of death, put it this way, somebody has died as a result of your actions, okay? I thought that it was interesting that, you know, they do specify it's iron, wood, and stone, you know, that are given as weapons, and, you know, that, but that you are to proceed immediately to the city of refuge, the closest city of refuge, no matter what, whether you're guilty or not, you're supposed to proceed and be judged. And it's interesting that again, I believe this is it's in the Mishnah. It says, according to Rambam, the pathway to a physical city of refuge is meant to be as clear as possible. In the Mishnah Torah, he writes, quote, the court is obligated to straighten the roads to the cities of refuge, to repair them, to broaden them. They must remove all impediments and obstacles. Bridges should be built over all natural barriers so as not to delay one who is fleeing to a city of refuge. Refuge should be written at every crossroads so that the murderer should recognize the way and turn there. And I thought it was beautiful that, you know, the correlation to us and our Father and Yeshua, how the road, now they say broaden roads, but the road is straight and narrow, and that we who are guilty of at least manslaughter, for it was our sin that took his life.
So here we sit at the refuge.
Well, that it is, well, no, we're on the way. We're on the way.
We're in it.
It's
We're in
important
it.
for us to proceed as quickly as possible via the straight path and watching every signpost that points the way to that city of refuge. You know, I thought it wasn't insignificant. I mean, I love the imagery that, you know, that it was accorded to them as law, that that's what they were supposed to do. They were supposed to make these roads, and the city of refuge should be, the 6 cities should be like, you know, when it says all roads lead to Rome, it should be like some road leads to